Welcome to the Cheerful Soundman podcast, where we talk about life and work in the production industry. Today, we'll talk about some gig nightmares today. We've done a few of these before, so I'm trying to make sure I don't repeat any here, but top of mind actually comes from a Halloween show a couple years ago. So our company puts on typically once, sometimes twice a year, a couple shows at a warehouse in town here, Gator Moving and Storage. It's just a big moving and storage warehouse with a big parking lot, and we throw a show out there for usually 2,500 to 3,000 people. We've had Diplo, STEVE Aoki, Shaq, DJ Diesel, and some others in there as well. Trying to remember, Zed's Dead was in there. That was a fun one. But anyway, so this great show, outdoor. We build just a dirty industrial parking lot into a really cool show site. My wife Harmony does some cool decor around it with she's got a bunch of pumpkins and cool lighting and black lighting and big not posters, draperies that they painted with cool scenes, and just ends up being a really cool vibe and a really good time. And then we'll put some food vendors around and other vendors throughout, and a lot of site lighting, things like that. So all that to build up and to say, power out there becomes quite an issue. So there's not really enough power to power the whole site. Again, it's just a moving and storage warehouse, so it's fluorescent lights and maybe some plugs in the walls in some different places, but we don't pull any power from the building. So we actually bring in a generator. We actually kind of, I don't want to say out of concern, but we were actually having some forethought on when we hired our generator, saying, hey, this is really important. We want to make sure that the generator company sends a tech. They were coming from out of town anyway, so it made more sense to pay the little bit of extra, have the tech stick around, so if anything, he's monitoring the generator, making sure power's all good throughout and everything's fine. So for this particular show, we also had it was a 40 or 56 kW generator outside, and we had hired in a 150 kW generator outside. So a pretty big generator to run light, sound, video, a lot of video elements everywhere. Kind of good, big, tow behind, appropriate generator. And then the other one, we were powering some food trucks and several other things around the site. And that was also, it was there, but it wasn't really enough power, the 56 kW. So somewhere, I believe it was right as Steve Aoki was going on. He came out, everybody's hyped, everybody's pumped, everything's happening, and he cranks it. There's a big drop. Now, granted, there have been opening DJs the whole time. Everything's been on the whole night. There's no reason to think that anything's going to happen. And all of a sudden, boom, the whole stage goes dark. It's one of those moments like in the movies, like everything, the air goes out of the building. Of course, people are very impatient. A couple of water bottles start flying, boo, like, as if we have any control over this stuff. And we fired the generator back up. Something had happened and it had just kind of puttered out, right? Very disconcerting, because especially when you don't know why something has failed, and that a lot of time is, honestly, that's the most concerning part when things do fail. If you can't replicate it, or there's not a clear sign as to why it failed, it just turned off and now crap. So as soon as this happens, you always see, you see a bunch of people with radios dressed in black just running towards backstage. We pretty much all left front of house except for one person running backstage out of the generator. Got 5, 6 very smart people cracking into action, and fired the generator back up. Everything's fine. Another song or two goes by. The generator tech's looking at it, he's monitoring it, he can't figure out, and he's got this fancy digital metering on it. It tells him all the engine specs and stats, and can't figure it out. Ga-goom! Happens again. The whole place, now it's like both Steve Aoki, like you can see as an artist, like that really pulls you out of your flow. If you're in the middle of a song, middle of a set, you're hyped, and then all of a sudden everything turns off, as you can imagine, that's a big buzzkill right there. That really brings you back down and stops the momentum of the show. It's very distracting. In fact, sometimes if that happens a couple times, now professional, amazing artists like Steve Aoki will be patient typically if their manager was over with us, kind of monitoring the situation and seeing how we were addressing it. But it's kind of one of those things. Probably, I would say if it happened one more time, he'd probably just go, okay, see you later. I fulfilled my obligations. You guys can't keep your system on. But so what we did was we snapped into action. One of our guys at the time, Aiden, jumped in. He goes, hey, I'm going to steal the generator from the food trucks. I said, great, they'll figure it out. And he drove his truck around, had to go in like over a culvert and back around the back, and because it was a closed site, and hitch up the generator, pull it around. We powered it down, hooked it back up, had everything up and running, and it all went, the rest of the night went flawlessly. I was actually super surprised that the smaller generator held on. We metered it and it was actually kind of just within spec. It was okay. But it was a very scary moment because we were also the promoter on that event. And as you can imagine, if the event falls apart on the second or third song and there's no event, there's going to be a lot of refund requests. And it's not as if, the artist is going to give us a refund on the very large amount of money that was spent on them. So you're really just in a bad spot when that happens. So thankfully the guys were able, we were able to think on our feet, get a solution. It felt like probably 2 hours of downtime. It was actually less than 5 minutes is what somebody clocked, because a text message went out, right, like to everybody right when it happened. Like, get a backup generator here now. And then within 5 minutes, we had not only had it hitched up, pulled around to the other side of the site, hooked up, fired back up, everything going, and he was playing again within 5 minutes. So that was, I've classified that under nightmares. It thankfully ended up being a success, but that is, that'll get your blood going pretty quick, and it's no fun to be in that situation. And I'm sure the crowd isn't too excited about it either, and the artist is definitely not excited about it. Moving forward with that, with shows that we produce, we typically provide a backup generator now. So that was the next year when we had Shack Diesel. We had 2 generators parked outside the whole time, so we didn't have to steal one from a food truck and move stuff around. And also then, if something does happen, we can simply power it down, move the feeder connections, power it back up, and we should be in business. So you've taken your 5 minutes down to 1 minute, basically. We consider kind of any downtime due to failure during a show unacceptable, but there is a certain level where sometimes things just happen, and there's not really anything you can do about it. A lot of our gig nightmares and a lot of the things that keep all of these folks up at night is power. Power tends to be a tough one. Just because we often we're bringing a lot of things that need a lot of power into locations, and you end up needing generators and additional power, and it's just a whole lot of points of failure. I always tell people, think about it like, your car doesn't break down all the time if you maintain it and it's not too old and all that, but it does occasionally break down, right? Even the best car, even the most well-maintained car. And really, large generators are the diesel truck engine and an inverter to convert that into energy for electricity. So despite, no matter how well you maintain it, no matter how much you do all the maintenance on schedule and clean and change your fuel filters and make sure you put good diesel in there and just all the things, there's still things can happen. So we also recommend to our customers, we don't do it for every show, and it doesn't always happen, and it is a big budget constraint sometimes, but we actually typically will recommend, especially if you're on a bigger festival, bigger show, lots at stake, that you have a backup generator and backup power on site, ready to go, ready to be switched over, just on the off chance, just in the case. Because the other thing, as a promoter, the generator company, they're only liable for however much you paid for the generator. So yes, you might get your $2,000 for your giant generator back, but you have to now refund $150,000 worth of tickets, and you still paid for all the porta potties, and you still paid for the production, and you still paid for barricades and security and event staff and things like that. Simple things like that can actually become a much bigger nightmare and even bankrupt people. And I've seen it happen. I've seen promoters just absolutely lose everything, have to take out loans against their house, things like that, to pay their bills, because of something simple like having a backup and having power.